I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances.
Are you now calling on him to resign?
Yes.
And if he doesn't resign, do you believe he should be impeached and removed from office?
Let's take one thing at a time here. I think he should resign.
Tonight, embattled Governor Andrew Cuomo digs in after a scathing report accusing him of sexual harassment, despite calls to resign from President Biden on down, as you just heard. Moments from now, famed attorney and activist Gloria Allred responds as well. We'll take you back live to the border, where there's an apparent tug of war between the U.S. and Mexico over sending families back south. Plus this.
You see, we got your gold. We put your tail in the county jail.
The outspoken Florida sheriff who performs rap after a big drug bust, and I'll ask him if he's worried about getting pushback for going too far. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. There are now serious and documented allegations against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Not that there weren't 5 months ago, but the state's attorney general just announced the results of an investigation that found Governor Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women, both inside and outside government, and the details are graphic. 2 outside lawyers talked with 179 people, all of whom interacted regularly with the governor, and found a hostile work environment rife with fear and intimidation.
These interviews and pieces of evidence reveal a deeply disturbing yet clear picture. Governor Cuomo sexually harassed current and former state employees in violation of both federal and state laws.
These allegations followed Cuomo's response to the COVID outbreak in New York and the controversy that ensued. He was praised for his handling of the pandemic at one point, even leading to a book deal on leadership, but criticized at another for the state's policy and how it impacted the reporting of COVID-related deaths at New York nursing homes. And then these allegations of harassment emerged, including a new one just released, accusing the governor of harassing a female state trooper on his security detail. In all, investigators found all 11 women involved were credible. Cuomo denies it all.
I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances. I do it with everyone, black and white, young and old. Trial by newspaper or biased reviews are not the way to find the facts in this matter. What matters to me at the end of the day is getting the most done I can for you. And that is what I do every day.
And that is where we start tonight. Let's bring in leading women's rights attorney, Gloria Allred. She joins us now. And Gloria, you've heard this denial from Governor Cuomo before. What was your reaction to today's?
Well, he's still denying. He's fighting for his political life. But there seems to be unanimity between Republicans and Democratic leaders in his state and perhaps elsewhere as well, that he needs to resign. He has been found to have sexually harassed many, many women in the workplace and engaged in at least inappropriate conduct elsewhere. I represent Sherry Ville. Sherry is a constituent in New York whom the governor visited after there was flood damage at her home. Without her consent, without asking her advance permission, in 2 different incidences, he took her face, grabbed it, kissed her, and inside her house and then outside of her house in the presence of witnesses. And we also have a photo that we shared with the press of his doing that. He has said, well, he's Italian, that's what Italians do. But my client is also Italian, and she has an Italian family. And she says that's not what Italians do. They do kiss members of their family. They don't grab the face of a stranger and pull them to him and then suddenly kiss them without their consent. It's just not what they do. And it's not right. It's not respectful. And in this case, it was not welcome.
So do you think any of the 11 involved will pursue civil or criminal cases, Gloria? You mentioned the client you represent, and then I also understand there's a criminal investigation underway already in Albany County, correct?
I don't know whether there is a criminal investigation underway or if there is, whether it will result in any criminal charges. But there's a whole world of hurt potentially ahead for Governor Cuomo. He needs to be accountable. He has used his power, his influence, his prestige to victimize women. And that is wrong. And now he cannot use his power to shield himself from the consequences of his wrongful acts. It was wrong. The former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, needed to be accountable for his conduct. And Governor Cuomo of New York needs to be accountable for his.
So what happens next, Gloria?
This is a teaching moment. He's certainly learning his lesson.
So what does happen next? You mentioned this is a civil investigation, and for all intents and purposes, it's over now. So what's the next step?
Well, the potential next steps are both political and legal. On the political front, the New York Assembly has been conducting its own investigation and has been interviewing those who say they were victims of Governor Cuomo as well. And they have formed an impeachment committee, and they will soon decide whether or not there needs to be a trial in New York in order to impeach Governor Cuomo. I think the final decision has not yet been made on that, but that's the next step politically if the governor refuses to resign.
Which he
from a
continues
legal point of view.
Right.
We'll have to see whether there's any criminal charges filed. Of course, that's always very difficult for a prosecutor because he has to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest burden of proof in the law. Could there be civil cases as well on behalf of some who allege they were victims? Absolutely. And that will take a lesser burden, a lower burden of proof to file a civil lawsuit for damages against the governor. And some may be considering that. We'll have to wait and see.
The governor tweeted this in 2013, Gloria. There should be a zero tolerance policy when it comes to sexual harassment and must send a clear message that this behavior is not tolerated. Based on what he said today, he doesn't think he did anything wrong. He maintains, to your point, that he does this all the time. But there was more to it involved than touching the cheek or kissing on the forehead, even if it's just that.
Well, this is about consent. And women have the right to be asked for permission to touch them. Our daughters have a right to have their permission asked. Maybe it was, formerly thought to be male privilege to touch a woman whenever you wanted to touch her, wherever you wanted to touch her. Those days are gone. It's against the law. And it's sexual harassment if it happens in the workplace. And even if it's not in the workplace, if you grab a woman and you kiss her, technically that's a battery. She could sue you civilly, and potentially there might be criminal liability as well. So he is the head of the employment workforce of state employees in New York, which is a very large workforce. He needs to be a role model, an example of someone who obeys the laws which prohibits sexual harassment. And he's not been that role model. He has betrayed the trust of the people of New York and of the employees. And now he needs to pay the consequences.
Leading women's rights attorney Gloria Allred. Gloria, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Joining me now, New York Assemblyman Jake Ashby. So, Jake, the question now is what's next for New York? Where does the state go in light of what happened today with this investigation?
Well, thanks for having me on tonight, Joe. And first, I want to emphasize the bravery of those who've come forward. And considering their accounts, I think that, our leader, Will Barclay of the Republican Conference, has called for a special session to be called and impeachment resolution to be filed immediately. So that's what needs to happen next. I don't think it can happen soon enough. Once that happens, and it's voted on, which I believe will pass, then the Senate can go forward with their trial.
Where does that impeachment process stand right now? Because it seems to me, Jake, at least when this was all being discussed, the Assembly started that process at one point. Where does it stand?
Well, the Assembly Judiciary Committee had started their investigation, and their investigation included the sexual harassment allegations along with several other things. So the volume of their investigation is very large. And what I believe Speaker Hastie is calling for now is an end to that investigation so we can move forward based on his most recent press release. I think we can do that and call for the resolution to be put forward in an emergency session as soon as possible. So
when would that be?
I'm waiting for that to happen.
How soon?
I would hope that would happen right now while I'm on with you. That's how optimistic I am about this. However, this state has had a long time with this governor, and there's no shortage of instances of wrongdoing with him. And I feel that at times we've really dragged our feet, especially in the majority conference, in coming to terms with that and holding this governor accountable. However, right now there seems to be large consensus on this issue, and I hope that we can see it through immediately. Well,
there is a growing chorus of voices calling for him to resign, and some of them are familiar from when these charges and allegations came up. Some of them are familiar. In fact, we heard from President Joe Biden today. Let's listen, and we'll talk on the other side.
I think he should resign. I'm sure there were some embraces that were totally innocent. But apparently the Attorney General decided there were things that weren't.
Well, we know, Jake, because we've been down this road before several times, and as these allegations continued to mount, Governor Cuomo continued to deny and continued to insist he was going to stay in office. It didn't appear to me today that anything in that arena was going to change. Do you agree with that, at least?
Yeah, I mean, the governor has definitely dug in, as it appears right now. I'm not sure he has as many friends as he has in the past. Maybe it'll start getting through to him when he starts seeing the wheels turn on this impeachment process. And like I said, this sexual harassment issue is just one of many. And from what I've heard going through some of the Judiciary Committee, the scope and the volume of this investigation and what's going on there, I'm not sure he wants all of that stuff to get out. However, I would welcome it. I think the people of New York deserve the truth. They need to see what's been going on with this governor. And I welcome and encourage the impeachment process to begin immediately.
Do you think there's any doubt he makes it to the end of his term next year?
Like I said earlier, I mean, this governor has no shortage of wrongdoings and shady business dealings over the course of his tenure. So I'm not going to count anything out. However, looking at it right now, it doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, I can't imagine. What's the feeling overall, before we let you go here, Jake, on politics in general in New York? I mean, he is up next year. Do you think he runs again if he survives this thing? And then you have the AG, Letitia James, may also run as well. Where is the state of New York's mind right now with politics?
That's certainly a possibility. His ego knows no bounds, as we've seen. So, he may try to hold on with this. There are several different scenarios that could take. However, I know that, there's a large consensus among us across the aisle that, he's got to go, and he's got to go immediately.
Jake Ashby, New York Assemblyman, thanks for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Now to the crisis at the southern border. Reports that Mexico is refusing to take back migrants who are turned away by the U.S. We will take you there live. And remember this guy, Rod Blagojevich, apparently wants to run for office again in Illinois, but can't. At least he's not ruling it out. So what's he going to do next? That's coming up. And don't forget to follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. There are reports now that Mexico may possibly refuse to take back many migrants crossing into the U.S. illegally as the U.S. renews a pandemic expulsion policy. News Nation's border report. Sandra Sanchez joins us now. Sandra, let's start with this report here and tell us what you can and what you know about whether Mexico is not taking migrants who are released back into Mexico.
Thanks for having me. There have been reports that Mexico isn't going to take them back. However, I've not been able to confirm that. And Congressman Henry Cuellar, who's vice chairman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee, Homeland Security, told me that indeed they are still working with Mexican officials to ensure that migrants will be returned to Mexico. But one thing you have to remember is that the state of Tamaulipas, which is just across the Rio Grande from where I stand right now, since January has not accepted tender-age children under the age of 6 or vulnerable populations like pregnant women. So that is still standing, but whether they stop accepting migrants back on the other parts of the southwest border is yet to be seen.
Let's talk about these unaccompanied minors, Sandra, because we hit a record for the number of children traveling alone in July. The U.S. takes them in regardless, right?
Yes, they do. Right now, HHS has over 14,300 unaccompanied migrant children in its custody, and about 300 to 600 more continue to come per day. Many cross right here in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. Part of that is because the coyotes and the traffickers know that the United States will take in these children, and they will process them right down the road from me.
So the Biden administration is also extending Title 42, which migrant support groups have been fighting, but it allows essentially the U.S. to deny migrants in based on the pandemic. What does that mean for migrants who are coming in and those who are detained?
Yes, yesterday the CDC did extend Title 42, which was implemented in March of 2020 under the Trump administration. And in doing so, they said that they also revised the policy. This was to help to prevent the spread of coronavirus into the United States. The new policy says that they will send back all these single adults, as many as possible, as well as migrant families. Not migrant children, unaccompanied. However, as we just talked about, the order that stands in Tamaulipas, the state in northern Mexico, they refuse to take them back. So what I foresee is that we will continue to see children, families crossing in this part of South Texas.
All right, Sandra Sanchez from Border Report, we appreciate the update. Thank you. Former governor, reality star, convicted felon, and now maybe a candidate again, Rod Blagojevich wants another shot, or at least he's not ruling it out. Famous for the line, "I've got this thing and it's golden." Blagojevich, later pardoned by then President Donald Trump, is suing for the chance to run for office in his home state of Illinois.
I can run for the United States Senate, but I can't run for mayor of Chicago. I can run for president of the United States, but I can't run for alderman to the 33rd Ward.
So is Blago, as he's known, planning a comeback? News Nation's Adrienne Bankert might be able to tell us. She has him live on Banfield tonight. And a quick update and correction, I should say, his sentence wasn't pardoned, it was commuted, but it's important nonetheless. So what's up his sleeve?
Well, you heard that soundbite from him. He's saying he could run for president, but not run for office here in the state of Illinois. A lot of the charges against him were appealed by the U.S. Appeals Court. But the fact of the matter is that Chicago, Illinois, his hometown, his home state, is still holding these charges against him and says that he not only was impeached, but he had his legal practice stripped away from him. So he cannot serve as a lawyer. He cannot serve an elected office, and he's suing the state now to get that right back.
Right. What's the latest with that suit? Because it was filed yesterday here in Chicago, correct?
Yes, that's right. And so right now he's going to be presenting himself as a non-lawyer. And his hope is that even if he doesn't run for office, he will be given the right to do so if he decides to change his mind. Right now, there's nothing that he wants to run for. He's not necessarily saying that he'll actually seek elected office, but he's removing any roadblocks to that cause.
Well, for people who don't remember this case, just give us some brief background about how we got here.
Yeah, well, he was actually, he was guilty of corruption, according to Illinois state law. They found him guilty. They impeached him because of phone calls, wiretaps. They presented that evidence in court, and 114-1 state lawmakers decided to impeach him. However, here's the thing. He says it was unconstitutional. And so he has evidence that he says he is backing himself up with when he presents this case in court.
This all goes back to the open seat of then Senator Barack Obama. And that's how he said, "I've got this thing and it's golden," which is interesting as you fast forward to what happened to him in the end with the sentence being commuted by President Trump. He has him to thank for that.
Yeah.
And now he calls himself
a Trumpocrat.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously a rising star of the Democratic Party at one time. He's not denounced his party, but he is loyal now to President Trump, who was also quoted as saying that, you know what, I think he served plenty of time, and really this was just a phone call. where nothing happened. He just said some things he shouldn't have said. It was all braggadocio. I'll make sure to ask him tonight if he was just talking a big game and what those conversations really meant.
We'll see what he says, too, about Governor Cuomo, perhaps.
That will be a good question to ask.
All right. We'll look for that tonight. Adrienne Bankert filling in on Banfield. Thanks for the time. Good to see you. Well, the mayor of New York says if you want to eat inside a restaurant in the city, you need to show proof that you're vaccinated. Can he do that? We're going to ask our favorite judge if the government can tell a business who they can and can't serve. That's ahead. And what's happening with air travel? Canceled flights, leaving passengers stranded, passengers getting into fights in the sky. Airlines say they're short-staffed, but should they be? What about all that bailout money the airlines got? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is standing firm against mask mandates, threatening to even defund schools that mandate them on campus. Meantime, the Delta variant is continuing to spread, and hospitals in that state are filling up. Let's check in with News Nation's Brian Enton. He is in Miami for us tonight. Brian, DeSantis has pretty much stayed the course. I'm guessing he's going to continue to do that no matter what happens.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. He has not budged at all. He's been talking about it pretty much every day, and it's been very controversial around the country and also right here in Florida. He says there is no way that masks will be required inside schools, and he signed an executive order saying just that. He says if you want your child to wear a mask in school, that's totally fine, you can, but he does not believe that parents should have to be required that their child wear a mask when they go to school. And what's interesting about this executive order is if a school district goes against what the governor says and requires masks, you mentioned it, they can then cut the state funding to that school district.
Have any school districts indicated that they might do that?
Well, Broward County, that's one of the biggest school districts in the entire state. They voted last week to require masks. Then they started to look more into it and see just how much money they were going to miss out on. Today, they released a statement saying they now intend to follow the governor's executive order.
Can he do it legally? I guess is the next question.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, this could go to the Supreme Court. He's done other things like that. He's basically signed other executive orders saying that you can't require masks in other public places throughout the state, and you can't have other COVID mandates and that sort of thing. All of those things have stood. So we'll see what happens with the school issue.
We will. All right, Brian Enton live in Miami for us. Thanks for the update, Brian. Good to see you. We want to now go to another part of the country on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to COVID-19 regulations, and that is New York City, set to require vaccines now for entry to restaurants and gyms and other places, raising the question, can states and cities set vaccine mandates? Joining me now, Judge Robert Holdman, former New York State Supreme Court judge, to shed some light on the legal aspect of this. So, Judge, I think it's pretty clear, we've heard anyway, that employers can require vaccines. The question here is, can states, can the government?
Right. It's a lot more clear, Joe, with private entities, private universities, as opposed to the public jobs and things that are in the public sector. What this all comes down to in regards to the legality of it is, as a citizen of this country, you have an unwritten contract with the government. You have your liberties, but then they have certain powers that you give up so you avoid chaos, right? So the country isn't run randomly. And that balancing act of that give and take that you have with the government is what's called into place here. So it essentially decides whether the personal liberty may be infringed upon or circumvented for the good of the public under the government power.
But I'm sure there are many who will fight that and say, fine, take it away, except when it comes to a decision that I make about my body or my health. We all expect pushback on this, right? This will be challenged, don't you think?
Oh, without question. It'll be challenged under the 14th Amendment, right? No state shall make or enforce a law which abridges the privileges of any citizen and deny due process of life, liberty, or property. And that's exactly what the opponents to what de Blasio is saying. Is that he's gone too far down the rabbit hole against the civil liberties, while there are other people in New York who say it's wholly appropriate. It's your action. You don't want to get the vaccine. That's fine, but you're not going to endanger others. So that's the balancing act that the courts will have to deal with
And
when entertaining these.
And where would you be if you were still on the bench? That's a tough question to put you in, but you just described both sides perfectly, Judge.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do, right? When you sit in the middle. Yeah, you're good, Joe, but you can't turn into this.
We're not going to get an opinion from you.
The court in Indiana, if you saw, Indiana University was challenged by a number of students who didn't want the mandate of the vaccine, and they relied on an old Massachusetts case from like 1905, where it compelled all the citizens to get the smallpox.
Right. Okay.
And so,
let me build on that, Judge, because it's a great case here. What the court said, the appeal court said, was that because there are other universities in Indiana, these students could go somewhere else. I guess the question would be, wouldn't that same argument apply to New York City?
Correct. And the distinctions that the appellate court made in Indiana was, one, it allows exemptions for religious or medical reasons, and two, it's not for all citizens. But the tough part with that is that with Indiana, that was just for a preliminary injunction. That case is not over. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They imposed the rule, they were sued, and what the plaintiffs did was then said, all right, we're going through with this lawsuit, but we want to stop them from imposing this rule until the lawsuit plays out. That's all that's been decided so far.
All right.
Now, because of the rulings, it doesn't look good for the plaintiffs.
Right. And we had actually that lawyer on, and he said he intended to take it all the way to the Supreme Court if need be. One more, Judge, and let's go back to New York. There's a vaccination requirement in a number of places that also offer you the option of showing a negative test. That's not, as I understand it, the case in New York City. Do you think that would have been a better option legally, if not personally, for people who are pushing back on this?
I think it was puzzling because, what de Blasio's order does is it mirrors some of the measures taken in Europe. And in some people's, I'm trying to sit in the middle here, I think it went a little bit too far. 2 days ago, he was really criticized by his own party for not going far enough on some issues. And then a day later went further than anyone in the country has gone.
Wow.
So, yes, to answer your question, I think it might have been wiser and he would have received less pushback if he had given that option.
Judge Robert Holman, former New York State Supreme Court judge, it's always good to see you. Take care.
Be well, Joe. Thank you.
All right, this might sound familiar. Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump against the party establishment. But tonight, it's in two congressional special elections in Ohio. Ohio's the 11th district. Nina Turner has the backing of Bernie Sanders, along with fellow progressive Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Meantime, Hillary Clinton is backing Shontel Brown, pitting progressive against centrist in the primary. Meantime, in the 15th district, Donald Trump backed coal industry lawyer Mike Carey. And as the results come in, we're going to bring in Julia Manchester, national political reporter for The Hill. So the polls closed about 7 minutes ago. Julia, what's the latest? What are you hearing? Anything? How long do you think it'll take for us to start seeing results?
Well, I think we could very well likely start seeing results within the next hour. I mean, both of these races have quite a bit of candidates. I believe it's 11 candidates in the 15th district and 13 candidates in the 11th district. However, there are very clear front runners, I would say, in both districts. Obviously, in the 11th district, the Cleveland area, Shontel Brown and Nina Turner are very much the front runners. Obviously, Nina Turner is the progressive candidate in that race, has the backing of Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez, while Shontel Brown is the establishment candidate. She has the backing of Jim Clyburn and Hillary Clinton, for example. And then, of course, if we go to the 15th district, which is in the Columbus area, we have President Trump obviously supporting Mike Carey, but we have also State Representative Jeff LaRay, who has the support of a number of, I guess, local organizers there, the Republican Party, and Ron Hood, a former state representative who has the backing of Ron Paul. So clearly, both of these districts kind of represent a test for the populist wings of both parties, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party and the Trump wing of the Republican
What are you hearing from the Republicans in Ohio there and in this district in particular? Because from what I understand, there are even some close to the former president who are wondering why he jumped into a special election with this many candidates in it.
Well, I think there's a lot of questions as to how far President Trump's endorsement will go. Remember, in last week's special election in Texas, his endorsed candidate, Susan Wright, lost to Jake Ellzey in that race. But there's a lot of questions as to how far that endorsement will go in this district, especially when you have other establishment Republicans really eager to jump in.
How much weight are people putting in these two special elections? It is awfully early, but I think a lot of people are looking at barometers, and not only on the Republican side with former President Trump, but on the Democratic side, as you said, with the progressive against the more centrist. How much are people putting into these results tonight?
They're putting quite a bit into these results. Look, whoever wins these primaries will likely, very well likely win the election in November in these districts. And that means that it could be one more Trump backer on the Republican side of Congress, or another progressive or establishment Democrat on the other side. And that could obviously impact a lot of policy going forward, especially in the 11th district. We've seen Jen Clyburn get involved in this primary, which was a very unusual move for him. And he's saying, look, he doesn't like this sloganeering, as he calls it, whether it's defund the police, Medicare for all, these slogans that liberals have essentially used to push their policies, especially progressives. But if you look back to the 2020 elections, especially that defund the police message, it didn't work well for them.
Right. We'll continue to watch it. Julia Manchester of The Hill, it's great to have you with us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
You see, we got you gold. We put your tail in the county jail.
That was the always animated Polk County, Florida Sheriff Grady Judd. I'll talk with him next about his latest bust and what's behind the disturbing trend involving rowdy passengers on flights. This week's cancellations by major U.S. airlines not helping. That's ahead. Well, there's a rap sheet, and then there's this rap. The sheriff of Polk County, Florida, Grady Judd, recently announcing the arrest of 29 people, including some rappers, in a narcotics sting this way.
That's right. They thought they were cool. Well, how cool are you today? You see, we got you gold. We put your tail in the county jail. You think about that, brothers.
The Sheriff Grady Judd joins us right now. Sheriff, you definitely have your way. We'll play some more of your highlights from the news conferences in a minute. But I'm wondering, did you get some blowback for the chain and the rap from people who thought it went too far?
Oh, no, I didn't. They're kind of used to that here. And my statement is, if you don't like it, don't violate the law, then I won't be able to talk about you.
How much time do you put into these news conferences, or is this something that you just sort of come up with on the fly?
Well, most of my staff, my communication staff, preps everything in advance. And of course, they brief me on it, give me the particulars. And then the color is usually on me, so I don't want anyone to take credit for that or discredit, whichever it may be, depending on your perspective.
All right, so let's show our audience a little bit more, because you do this with a number of high-profile cases. Here's a few of your best of hits.
He made the statement that his conduct was animalistic. I agree with that. This is a peaceful protest. This is a riot. We can tell the difference. I guarantee you, when you start trying to carjack somebody's car at a gas station, you're subject to get shot, and shot a lot. No, he was not knocked off by his buddies, but he is dead, and now Jesus has got to deal with him on all his thefts.
So, Sheriff, tell us what the response is like in Florida. I mean, you say people have gotten pretty much used to it. Is it sort of must-see TV down there when you come out for a news conference?
You know, I'm really blessed, I guess, because I get the clips that go viral, and I get a lot of positive feedback. And I get a little negative feedback, but as you can imagine, you know, their mama's not going to like it. But, you know, if their mama taught them not to violate the law, then I wouldn't be talking about them.
Right. I also like and enjoy that you show their pictures a lot. And in fact, you even showed 3 of your own deputies who'd been arrested for tampering with evidence, I guess. And then you do share those pictures. And what I also wonder about is how you use them to sort of like talk to each other in the news conference. It's almost like you're a puppeteer.
You know, that's important because you want your criminals to have one last word together before they go to the county jail, because once they get to the county jail, we won't house them together.
Are you worried at all about the fact that some of these folks have been charged but not yet convicted?
Oh, no, I don't lose a bit of sleep over that, because once again, if they didn't go out and commit the crime, then I wouldn't be talking about them. All they have to do is learn to behave and stay out of trouble, and then they won't be subject to one of my press conferences. But it's very simple. If you violate the law, if we arrest you, you're subject to be on a press conference, just depending on how crazy or how big or how out of the ordinary your criminal conduct is. Right. And I get a huge following. I've got hundreds of thousands of followers.
Yeah, I know that we showed the clip of the recent sting, but has there been anything we've missed in the last couple of days?
Well, you actually showed a little piece of the news conference I had earlier today. My detectives, who are simply the very best, partnered up with the police departments from Polk County and also the Orange County Sheriff's Office and Orlando Police Department, and we did an undercover sting looking for deviant, nasty, nasty people that were wanting to prey on little children, 13 and 14 years of age. And we put all of them in jail, all 17 of them, from a week's work. I badmouth them today, but they need it because they're deviants, they're criminals, they're child predators. And had my detectives and our officer detectives that helped us not been the good guys posing as children, they would have attacked those children. Instead, they attacked a jail cell for a long time.
Have you ever come across any of these suspects, like on their way to the county jail, where they see you and say, oh, no, I knew you were going to be looking for me?
Well, actually, I have, and I've had some of them want their picture with me. Can you believe that? I've put them in jail, or they're on their way to lockup, and they go, can we have a selfie together? And you know what? I do it.
Really? In addition to the mugshot, now they have two pictures from you.
Absolutely. In fact, just the other day, a couple of our car wash people who are trustees in the county jail, you know, I get my car washed every day. Not because it needs washing every day, but because they need discipline and learn to respect and be accountable. And I'm giving them a job, you know, a job opportunity when they get out to work in a car wash. Two of them were scheduled to get out anyway. And they said, would you send us a picture? I've always wanted a picture with you. And I said, sure. So I autographed a picture and mailed it to their address so they would have it to hang on their wall when they got out of jail, since they wouldn't see me on the wash rack every day.
Ah, right. Well, is this a bit of a cat and mouse game, Sheriff, you think, like where the criminals in your county mock you until you catch them, and they're fully aware of the fact that when you do catch them, you're going to mock them?
Well, do you know, I don't know, some of them mock me occasionally, but, you know, we did a rap video with some rappers called Duck and Grady. And if you haven't seen that, you need to go on and to see it. First, they created the original rap using video they got off of Line, and I loved it. I thought it was totally awesome. So then I did a rap video with them. And my message is clear. Stay out of Polk County or you'll come to jail. And you know what? We don't serve peanut butter and jelly. And we don't give out any underwear. If you want it, buy it off of the commissary.
What's been your favorite news conference, Sheriff? What's a line or two you loved? What were your favorites?
Well, my last one was my favorite one. I enjoy news conferences, and I guess when I clearly warn people that if you shoot at my deputies, we'll shoot at you a lot. And it's a very strong message, but it's an honest message. Don't point guns at my deputies. Don't charge at my deputies with knives. If you do, we're going to shoot you. We're going to shoot you enough that we can read a newspaper through you. So you respect us and don't put our life in danger, and we'll always respect you. That's a guarantee.
Do you think they do respect you, Sheriff, or is there concern that this might put some of your officers and deputies at risk?
Oh, no, I think they respect us, and we respect them. You know, it's a mutual feeling. Our crime rate is a historic lows. Why Some areas of the country have 10 and 15 crimes per 100 people per year. Ours is at 1.26. Our crime is at a 49-year low in this county. It's one of the safest places to live, work, or play. So come on to Florida. Have a great time. We're not scared of criminals, and we respect COVID, but we didn't shut down Florida for it.
Well, it sounds great. As long as you don't have a mugshot of me, we're all right. And I'm sure it's definitely put to good use down there where people don't want that and don't want to be the subject of one of your news conferences.
Well, we look forward to you coming to Florida and having a good time. But if you don't, you can come to Florida on vacation and leave on probation.
With a souvenir and a YouTube moment from Sheriff Grady Judd of Polk County. Sheriff, it's great to see you. Thanks for your time. Passengers gone wild. What's behind the rise in rowdy passengers, and why are major U.S. airlines so short-staffed after getting billions in COVID relief funds?